In other news, I came across PBD discussing something that I've also seen on X. So as I've been making jokes about the Jews, I've noticed that anti-Semitism does seem like it's on the rise. There have been attacks on Jewish people around the country. Someone was set on fire. Students at certain Ivy League schools have had pro-Palestinians and just other people that are liberals or leftists on a different place in the spectrum of politics. They've had them accost them at school, come up to them. Sometimes there's groups of people screaming and yelling. So we've noticed that a little bit in the Jewish community, but I came across something today on PBD that discussed it in another group, that this is also happening to other groups, not just Jewish people.
7,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria this year. 7,000. According to Newsweek, the story came out. And you don't hear much about it, okay? You don't. You hear a lot more about Gaza than you hear about Christians. Christians get killed. Even some Christians don't talk about it enough. They put more focus onto what's going on with Gaza because it's easier to have a enemy that is disliked than this. However, this is the reality of it, what's going on in Nigeria right now. 7,000 Christians have been killed during the first 220 days of 2025. A civil society watchdog says this is an average of 35 killings a day, according to a recent report published by the Nigeria-based human rights NGO and International Society for Civil Liberties and the Rule of Law. Nigeria has long been an epicenter of Christian persecution, with more Christians killed for their faith in Nigeria than in the rest of the world combined. Damn. According to human rights organization Open Doors, which monitors the persecution of Christians around the globe, the violence has displaced at least 12 million Christians since 2009. 16 years, according to Inner Society. That year marked the start of Boko Haram's insurgency to establish a caliphate in Nigeria and the broader Sahel. In the 16 years since, Inter-Society estimates 189,000 civilians have been killed, 125,000 of whom were Christians, and 60,000 were liberal Muslims. The Inter-Society...
Again, there's a lot to unpack here. I've touched on the fact that we've seen this in America with Jews, and it's been discussed. As PBD said, this is also happening to Christians. And he has, as was stated, thousands of Christians, tens of thousands of Christians have died. Millions have been displaced. So to compare it to the situation in Gaza, we've had hundreds of thousands of people die, and we've also had hundreds of thousands of people misplaced. But for the Christians in Nigeria and some other places worldwide, they've been millions of people displaced. So this problem that we have of violence, persecution, but also displacement of people based upon religious beliefs is another problem that we have in society that we do need to work on. How can we have people of different faiths, just as we have people of different socioeconomics and different ideological beliefs? How are we going to talk and discuss how we can fix things and also acknowledge what everybody's going through? Because what you notice sometimes when you talk as a black person, I've noticed talking to whites, is sometimes frustration just comes from people not being heard. So Jews are being heard, and we're discussing nationally and on the social media sphere, we're discussing how anti-Semitism is rising, and people are looking into what can we do to bring down the heat. So we also need to discuss how the Christians have heat being brought on them, and we need to figure out, and not just Christians, because as he stated, some of the Muslims are attacking liberal Muslims because inside the Muslim faction, there are various sects, Shiites, Sunnis, and also just different regional ways people practice. So in Nigeria and some other places, some of the more conservative Muslim groups are persecuting other Muslim groups just because they're liberal. So basically, no matter what we're discussing, whether it's race, whether it's socioeconomics, or it's religious beliefs, or even ideology, there's a situation with human beings where disagreement turns into violence, and it turns into murder after it turns into violence. So we just need to be focusing more on ways in which we can have the disagreements and talk and not fight.